Hello, hello. This is great. It doesn't feel like anyone's here at all.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Awesome. Thanks
It-
everyone for joining. I see people coming into the participant room. That's awesome. Well, since it's 12:03, I'm going to start with welcomes and intros because I think people will trickle in, but we also know that there are quite a few people who are going to watch this on a recording at 1.5 or 2x or just catch the clips because that's how life is these days. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to the first session of the virtual learning series put on by Avalanche VC and ECMC's Education Impact Group. We're both venture investors focused on companies that are transforming how people are learning and working in career pathways. I focus on pre-seed companies in the early stage, and ECMC Education Impact Fund can do everything from pre-seed up to Series B. Much larger pool of capital and absolutely great folks. And so this is our first of 6 learning series that we're putting on for founders, senior executives at startups that are really trying to push their companies to the next level and be venture-backed businesses. My name's Caitlin. I'm the founder and managing director of Avalanche VC. We're an early stage venture fund. We have a portfolio of over like 50 companies at this stage, at this point, between our various funds, all in the learning, earning, and owning sector. And I'm thrilled today to have our expert guest, Daniel Lim, aka Limmy, which is what I'll refer to call you, and as our expert to talk about social media as a marketing strategy. Limmy has over 1 million followers between TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and has created incredibly viral content for college students and aspiring college students. And even more impressively, he just graduated from college 6 months ago and has been kind of deep into the influencer space. And I'll actually for my first question, I'd love to turn it over to you and can hear directly, like, how did you come to become a content creator, influencer? How do you think about those terms? How did you get here? And is that a typical path?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say my path is a lot different than the usual content creator. So when I talk to a lot of folks that started out doing content, it's always, oh, well, during quarantine, I was bored and blah, blah, blah. For me, I almost got into it out of, uh, I don't know, I guess desperation. It's probably closer to that. I was pre-med for the first 2 years of college, decided not to do that, and then was looking for other things to do, was looking for an internship in March of my sophomore year. Uh, couldn't find anything on Handshake besides this social media marketing internship. And at this point, I had no social media experience whatsoever. But I was like, hey, let me try this out. It's the only thing that I could find. And so started making videos for their interview process. Didn't get the internship. And so I had a whole summer of doing nothing. And I was like, oh man, I could be screwed. And what am I going to do? And so I had this content thing. I thought it was pretty fun. And was like, I guess I'll try making more videos for my own channel. And yeah, it's kind of how I got into it.
And how did you know you were onto something? Like, when did that sort of click? Like, how many videos did you have to create? And like, what was like kind of that inflection point moment?
So when I first started in May of 2022, I was making around 5 TikToks a day. So one every couple hours, or I'd batch create just to see. I think at that point, I was just trying to figure out if I could go viral. And so it took about 150 to 200 videos, if I remember correctly, from when I started. So about a month and a half in, I had my first viral video in June, the month right after. And up until that point, all 150, 200 videos were at around 80 views. And so I was pretty close to giving up, but then at that point, I was like, I mean, I'm in so deep, I might as well try to see if one of these can go viral. And the one did. And then I was chasing that high for ever since, basically.
What was the video and why do you think it went viral?
So when I first started, it wasn't anything education related. It was more so my worldviews and controversial takes. And the video was about my experience talking to different types of people in different socioeconomic groups at Duke. Um, and I think the video was based on a conversation that I had with my mom the night before. Uh, and it was a spicy take. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but all I remember is that it was a spicy, angsty take from a 19-year-old about the different uh, wealth classes.
Hmm.
And kind of it was just crazy for me to see the juxtaposition of these uber wealthy families and these, very low income students from the poorest regions of Georgia or something like that interact. I just thought it was a sight to behold. And a lot of people have opinions on that kind of thing. So I think the comments section was very heated, and that contributed to the growth of the video as well.
So you had like the one viral video, and then how could you turn that? I mean, and I think one of the interesting things of that is like a learning not to be lost is that you have to get some people's attention, and it has to be something that triggers them in some way, right? There's like an emotional grab to it. If it's just like no one wants to hear your like boring marketing spiel. Um, But then I guess to finish the story, you have the one viral video. How do you go from like one viral video to like building an audience that is like following you over time?
So it was a huge uh, set of pivots that I made with my content to really figure out what worked and what didn't. And so, like I mentioned, I was starting off with philosophical worldview content, uh, threw in a couple thirst traps in there, moved on to
What's a
like
thirst trap for us olds?
it is when you post uh it's it's like what's a good way to put it? Um it's like a way to attract the other gender through the video, let's just say. Let's just put it like that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Um so yeah. Um
Do
and
you think
then
brands do that? Or is that something you can just only you can kind of do as an influencer to build an audience or like, you know,
yeah, so it's funny because you see all these branded social media pages start trying to
yeah.
be more provocative, and they're probably being run by these Gen Z kids that comment out of pocket things and post out of pocket videos. So it seems like it works. As to whether those things actually convert into customers is probably another question.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I was doing that, and
Yeah.
then was doing I was just thinking, what can I talk about the most? And one of the first things that came to my mind was, I could talk about my immigrant experience. And I think people could relate to that, especially people, that are like me. And then made a couple of videos about that, got to maybe 15K followers on TikTok. And then I got my first brand deal offer. It was $300 for like a language learning something something. It didn't even go through, but I was amazed at the idea that I could make money from social media. The deal didn't go through. They actually ghosted me, but I think that was the proof that I needed that I could make this work. And so at that point, I started, moving faster and faster. Eventually found this college thing, found a repeatable motion where I could just turn my brain off and just pump content out about something that people were interested in. And that's basically how we got to where I am now.
Awesome. That's an amazing story. And for everyone on this call, I recommend that you go to TikTok or Instagram, check out at Lemmy Talks, and you can see how his sort of like formula of breaking down applications and how people get into college and doing it in such a fun and engaging way. But I think now, you've kind of gone, you've taken yourself as a individual, become an influencer or a content creator with an audience, and then have like started getting like people reaching out to you to potentially advertise, work with, have you create content for them or help advise their content or even advertise on your channel. Can you talk a little bit about that evolution and how you kind of like think about that, how people come to you, and then kind of how you've the sort of advice you've given brands that are trying to break in?
Yeah, for sure. Hmm. Hmm. So early on, I think I started to get serious brand deals when I was at maybe 40, 50,000 followers on TikTok. This is when educational brands like StuDocu and a couple other note-taking ones and that sort of thing, they started reaching out and asking to do deals. Um, and then eventually, I think once my channel started growing, I um, would get these bigger brand deals with bigger brands. And um, I think thinking back, hmm, I would say after that first, the type of person that I am, after I got that first brand deal offer, which at that point I had no idea how this stuff worked. I just thought it was really cool that they were offering me money to post something.
Yeah.
And I was pre-med. So if that's any indication of how much I knew about business up until sophomore year, so this is completely new to me. But I'm the type of person to like to look into things and research. And so I went down this rabbit hole of how brand deals worked. And so I kind of figured out, okay, this is probably what my value should be, and this is what I should be arguing for, and et cetera, et cetera. And okay, this is probably how I make a good ad for this company. Um, but I think from my experience, the best brand deals have, or the brand deals that have performed the best were when the brands worked closely with the influencer to create the ads. I think in a lot of cases, brands uh, don't want to think too much about the actual content, and so they'll give guidelines, but they won't be too involved in the actual video creation process, which I think is fair. I'm starting to do some things on the brand side as well for my brand, and I've realized, okay, I can see why on the brand side now it's tricky. There's more things that you have to consider. But I think from my experience as a content creator, I realized that when the brand understands exactly what the the pain points of their target customer is, and then how that translates into the video, I think that's where um, the most bang for your buck can happen. So I don't know if I'm going to be jumping forward with this, but one of the best brand deals that I did with a company was for this educational boot camp for high school students.
Hmm.
It was an offer for 5 grand. It was, I think, a 3 week, 2 week, 3 week program where it was run by one former founder and then one McKinsey partner, and they were teaching these students soft skills, um, and worked very closely with the video, the
Hmm.
promotion, and which is very unlike other brand deals that I've done where they were like, okay, give us a script, we'll approve it, and then you make the video. We hopped on 2, 3 calls, talked about the video, talked about different sorts of things we want to add, and they were very open about what they wanted the outcome to be, and um, you know, provided me with great talking points. Like it's being able to include things in the video, like this video or this program is endorsed by, this person and this person who, works at Harvard's admissions office is sending their kids to our program because it's
Hmm.
that great of a program and that sort of thing. And, just making my life easier to make this video also led to the great, a better performance for the video and a better ad overall. I think we converted 30 people off just that one video. I think it hit 300K views on Instagram. We did maybe 300 signups and, they did like 200 interviews. And so that was all because they were very closely involved in creating that video and understanding who their target audience for that product is and understanding their product very well.
I mean, that's really insightful. And that's a really good takeaway for companies like looking to partner with influencers is like before you go to an influencer, don't expect this to be like a magic box where they're going to be able to take care of everything for you, but instead be clear about who you are, who your audience is, and be able to come with some real direction. Um, how do you think about like there's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I've actually been super impressed with like your LinkedIn content. That's one area I've been trying to be good at, but it's like, oh, I think actually he's like a LinkedIn influencer too. Like, how do you think about those platforms? Like the different advantages and disadvantages and like how one should think about that?
Mhm. So take some notes for this. So those will be helpful. So for Instagram, um, I think Instagram is the best usually for consumer facing products. YouTube is a bit tricky because, especially with long form, when influencers put an ad in the middle of the video, this video is sponsored by 95% of people will skip that. So it's a bit tricky. And rates also tend to be higher, so you don't get the best bang for your buck. Instagram is great also because they have stories. And with stories, they're very intimate. They're gone in 24 hours. A lot of people will hop on Instagram just to scroll through stories, don't even go through the in feed. And so it's it's probably my favorite way of doing promotions. Um, it's easy. You can put the link in the bio, or you can put the link in the story, and so it's you can track directly even on the creator side how well it's doing by seeing how many link clicks there are. TikTok is more so brain rot, and so that's sort of the new term nowadays where you're talking about content that's rotting your brain. And so it's very fast paced. It's very dopaminergic stuff. It's, flashing lights and all this other stuff. It's easy to go viral once, but to replicate that is tricky because on TikTok, you don't actually retain your audience. You might follow someone and never see another video from them again, just from the way that the For You page works. Um, but I think the algorithm is interesting, um, where if you're someone that watched video one, two, and three, and there's someone else that watched video one, two, and four and like those videos, then you'll be shown four and they'll be shown three, that sort of thing. So
Hmm.
there is once you get that one viral video, you can. It's still trickier than Instagram because on Instagram you can once you follow someone, they'll show up on your feed. But on TikTok, you can kind of play that. And so you basically just have to try to replicate the same video over and over and over again on TikTok. Whereas on Instagram, you can be a little bit more creative with the different types of things that you do. Um, and then on LinkedIn, I kind of just take it as writing practice. It's fun for me because I have a bigger college audience on there. It seems like folks see my Instagram or my TikTok and they think, oh, okay, I guess he knows something about something. And so they, follow me on LinkedIn. So that's cool. I think LinkedIn has some of the most potential at the moment because the attention is underpriced and because folks tend to be more engaged and serious on LinkedIn. Um, so I'm very excited to see where LinkedIn will eventually go.
Yeah, me too. That's the one platform I feel uh that I'm potentially interested in as an individual, but I'm not a consumer brand. How just to like double click on some of these points, like what is a successful conversion rate that founders should benchmark to for some of like the ads on social platforms? And like
Yeah,
should
so
like and how do you average that across the different ad creative copies?
right. Yeah, it's tricky. It's still really hard to track conversions.
Mm.
Even for so I have like a little essay review service called Max Submit. Even for Max Submit, we'll do an influencer ad, like a story with someone else to promote our essay reviewing service. We'll see a spike, um, but nobody's using the coupon code, which is very odd. We'll have maybe
Mm.
10% or 20%. And so folks are definitely seeing the ad and going to the site, but the coupon code can be half and half. So I see a lot of brands based off how well an ad is doing based on like direct conversions. I think that's like a slippery slope because there's probably a good portion of the audience that will see the ad, either not see the coupon code or not see or just not care. Go to the website on their native browser, type the website in, and then buy. Um, so that's another tricky part. I think the other thing that you can do is have like a cookie system where you have a unique link in bio
Mm.
for the influencer, and then every time a customer buys, and it tracks directly back to um, when that viewer clicked on that influencer's unique code, then in terms of conversion rate, I would say, I guess it depends on the goals, but typically for max admit, we, even if it does one to one, um, that'd be, we would try to continue to do that partnership again.
What does that
Um,
one-to-one mean?
like,
Like you just get one customer?
like how much money we spent versus how much money we make.
Okay.
Yeah,
And when you say make, you mean revenue, not profit, right? So if you just like spend $400 and then you get $400 of revenue, you'd still do it again
right. Yeah, yeah.
because you're building brand awareness and there's probably like other people that have seen it that could convert, but like you're not capturing all of that.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. It's also tricky to think about boosting those ads as paid ads. I'm not too familiar. I know a little bit. But from what I've seen, it seems like the best returns are pretty much um, from organic, or at least a lot of my friends, because we're more so college age and we want to be scrappy and don't have that much money to start with. We'll stick with organic, and it seems to be working for a lot of these organic companies. So
Hmm. How much does it cost to work with an influencer? Do you structure as pay for success or a flat rate?
it'll depend on the influencer, but I think the best way to incentivize influencer to work with you is to do a base rate and then commission. A lot of influencers, especially ones that are in education, because they tend to skew towards being more knowledgeable,
Hmm.
know that it's not worth for them to do just like a flat commission thing. And so they'll want a base rate as well. Um, so yeah, I think usually the best case outcome is um, you want to try to figure out what kind of return you think you can get, and then that's how you give the offer to the influencer. So in our case, it'd be like for Max Submit, um, with an influencer to say, we think we can get maybe 5 or 6 conversions from a small story post. We'll offer like 250 or 300. And then if it works, it's great. And then you can move on to maybe like an in-feed post, maybe a set of stories or, a set of reels. But you don't want to try to start small, and see if there's engagement from the audience, and then you can take it from there.
What are good ways? This is from Eric Chan that like how do you what are good ways to reach out to creators? Like what do they care about? Like how do you, get them to be excited about working with you, your company and your brand?
So the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to make sure that you address them by their first name. So when I get a brand deal email and it says, "Hi, Limmy Talks," or I don't know, just it just doesn't even have that. I won't even read the email because I know it's automated. And I think a lot of influencers know that these automated emails are it's just not great. But if it's "Hi Limmy" or "Hey Limmy," then I'm like, okay, maybe someone actually sat down and wrote this.
Mm.
And of course, there are great tools out there right now to enrich your emails. So you don't have to fully sit down and bang out 50 unique emails manually. There's some, I think, automation that could be helpful, but I think there's still a level of personalization that helps. And then as for what they care about, it's really dependent on the influencer. Some will care purely about the cash. Like I have friends who are purely on that side. They don't care what they promote. They just care about the money. And then there are some that, want to promote on the polar opposite end. I guess there's people that will only promote things that they actually care deeply about. These tend to be the bigger influencers. Um, I would say, I think first and foremost, I'm always happy to talk to folks who seem like they'd be a good friend. Um, and so, whenever I was actually telling telling you about Flow Voice just because the email that they sent was so great. They're like, hey, like, we really like, talk about
Yeah.
my content, talk about why they like it. And they thought, okay, we have this product. We're really excited about it. I think, it could be really great for you, if you wanted to try it out. So yeah, I think they're like, yeah, we're in SF, if you want to get coffee sometime, would love to get coffee. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. That's great. As opposed to, we need you for a brand deal. We'll pay you this much, which works a decent amount of the time, but usually it's like unless you're offering a crazy amount of money, it doesn't work. And so if you want the best brand deal, or if you want the best deal, especially as a startup that's limited on cash, it's probably in your best interest to try to befriend these folks first.
It's such a timeless lesson in so many different applications too. Like, I mean, I think as you were saying, I was like, even when people try and pitch me as a VC, it's like Dear Avalanche team or like Dear Caitlin Donnelly, or, like you can just tell that someone hasn't like read the website or like doesn't really care. And you're like, it's just unlikely to be a match. And in a world where there's just so many opportunities, you really just want to have a relationship with longevity. And that's going to be like, they're going to get the most conversion out of that relationship. And then you're going to also be able to get the most, like good ROI on your time over the long term.
100%.
Um, I was going to ask you if like, can you like how do you think about your existing audience and engagement metrics when you start to take on brand deals, and like does it begin to like dilute, like can you tell that like your audience is like losing interest, or they're like you get unfollows, like, or are you like, okay, I think that there's actually like a lot of like elasticity in here to be able to push a message that I'm getting paid for and engaging people at the same time?
Yeah. Um, I guess before I answer your question specifically, Caitlin, I think we should, if we go more upstream, I think everything is solved when there's good product audience fit. And so with
Mm,
my content, it's naturally gonna skew for high achieving high school students.
yeah.
So, for example, I did a brand deal with USAA recently, renters insurance, which maybe, probably not converted anybody at all, to be honest. The high school students.
Yeah.
Maybe okay, I have a percentage of parents in my audience, and maybe some of the high school seniors at the tail end of last year saw the video. Now they're in college. Okay, maybe I'll consider getting renters insurance, but there's not that great of a fit there. I mean, they paid me a lot of money to post this ad, but did it actually do anything? Probably not. Um, as opposed to the brand. So Futures Forge is the boot camp that I mentioned earlier. And I did a couple other ads for other boot camps, which are more high ticket, couple grand, maybe two, 3 grand, 5 grand offers. Those always do very well. Um, like for example,
Mm,
even I was surprised that we converted 30 people for Futures Forge. And so, and even in that case, even if it is me promoting this boot camp, these kids know that they need to do something crazy and they're looking for things to do, as well as the parents. So it makes sense for me to promote this. And it's kind of like a value add for the audience. I think in a lot of cases when conversations about, oh, this influencer is only shilling this to make money, et cetera, it's because the fit is bad.
yeah.
Um, and that just creates all sorts of problems for all parties because not only are you not getting the results that you want with with the ad, but the influencer's image is probably going to be damaged and you're wasting money. It's a whole, ordeal. But if the fit is good, it makes sense for everybody. And it's less about the money and it's more about, okay, this could actually be valuable. This boot camp, I'd actually be down to do this. And this influencer is only there to just talk about it. Um, so I think thinking about the clear value add that you can add to the members of an audience is key. Um, and I don't remember what the original question was.
Well, I think you answered it actually, because I was like, okay, are there downstream effects where like do you lose engagement or lose like do people unfollow you if you have too many ads? But I actually like it, you reframed it in a much like more thoughtful way, which is, it's all about fit. Um, Another question for you is, do B2C and B2B approaches to social media marketing differ significantly? Like, are they looking for different outcomes or conversion? Like, is it, brand building or conversion?
Yeah, so I'm not too familiar with B2B marketing. I know LinkedIn is a great place for that. Um, hmm. I think the psychological components are definitely similar. Um, I would like to think that the same sort of principles apply um, in terms of addressing the true pain points of an audience through a product is the best way that you'll um, get to a positive return. Um, hmm. Yeah, I think on LinkedIn, I don't have too much experience, but eventually I would like to think that there's a day that I could do some interesting B2B marketing for companies on LinkedIn. Um, but until that day, I probably don't have too much that I could say on the intersection of those.
How do you think through that? Like, how would you be like, oh, I now can do something interesting for a B2B business on LinkedIn? Like, what would that look like?
Um, hmm. So I know on Twitter there's a big uh like indie hacking group um that make great B2B SaaS tools. Um so I would think that there's probably some opportunities to do something similar on LinkedIn. Um
Is it kind of like the build in public thing? Like I've been sort of looking at Adam Robinson. He's an entrepreneur in Austin and he has like retention.com and he's just like basically open sourcing all of their like his like growth to 10 million ARR and he's selling, I think like, tools to retain users on a website. So I guess like that's you just kind of like the audience you build up and the product that you have.
yeah, I think for my situation, I'm not sure how applicable this would be, but there was a point in time where I tried to focus my LinkedIn on uh, creator economy information.
Hmm.
And so perhaps an interesting angle for me was to try to work with one of these companies that's bridging that gap. Basically, the crux of, what our conversation today is about, where there's a ton of companies that are trying to match brands with influencers. Um, but it's still a very nascent space. And a lot of startups are trying to crack that, but it's not really fully automated yet, like it is with TV ads or something like that. And so maybe one of these companies could be an interesting partner where if I'd continued to write about the creator economy stuff and gathered a bunch of brands and a bunch of creators, could be interesting for me to, be sort of a ambassador for one of these companies, but that's very specifically creator economy focused. I'd say in education, it's probably a little tricky to think exactly how you would do that. My initial instinct is that there are definitely folks in the education space that uh, probably have a great audience of um, folks that are, say in higher education or say that are administrators in various school districts, or even teachers, let's say. I'm sure there's influencers that are teachers and that talk about their teaching experience. And, maybe they have the, executives of, uh, all different types of school districts. I think if you
Yeah,
can find those
teacher
folks,
talk is huge, apparently. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's
I
its
see,
own thing. Yeah,
yeah, I see a post every once in a while from a teacher talking about their experience, talking about the issues that they have, and I think it's definitely interesting.
yeah.
Um, and there, it does seem like one of those uncovered gems where if you are able to activate them properly, then you could probably get a lot of growth in the B2B space. I think it's only fair. I think a lot of people are starting to realize that B2B influencer marketing um, is could be a real thing.
Um, are there ways to hack the algorithms of different channels? Like just tips and tricks?
So the way that I think about content is
Hmm.
that sure you could hack. I mean, when you talk about hacking, it's like they're mostly fads. And so they're very hard. They're like it's trying to catch lightning in a bottle. I think the best strategy, if you want to think more long term, is to build a content brand and an identity.
Mm,
Um, and the hardest part about starting out in the beginning, and this is where 99% of people get stuck, is that they can't beat the zero like. That's how I like to think about it. So when you first hop onto a video from a new channel, it has zero likes. And that's probably the biggest signal for me as a viewer not to want to watch the video.
mm.
Because if there's no social proof of the video, then it's like, do I really know if this video is going to be good or not? And so, in order to beat the zero like, you have to make the video just absolutely insane. Um, and so, I think there is an argument to be made that in the beginning, you have to be more risky with your content. You can start off being very risky, and then you can build something around it once you have the eyeballs. It's really hard to get the first set of eyeballs. Um, and so, when yeah.
Well, like some of the things I've heard, but tell me what you think about this is like, okay, so like when I will post on LinkedIn, I've done this like a few times if I wanted to like get pop, then I have like a group of 10 people or 15 people. I'm like, can you please just go in and like this link right now so that I know that if I do that within the first 30 minutes, then hopefully it'll like get boosted by the algorithm. Are there things that people can do to like hack that zero like problem when it sort of matters?
Hmm.
Or is that just kind of like it's like short term? It's like a sugar high, but it's not going to endure.
I think on platforms like LinkedIn, it can work. Um, just because it seems like the circles are a bit smaller and a post with, say, 50, 100 likes is very good. Whereas on
Hmm.
Instagram, to get critical mass, you need a huge number of people. So it's a bit more difficult to try to get 2,000 people to like your video in the first 15 minutes by texting them, for example. Um, and also just the way the algorithm works, I think it pushes it out to random people first to see their reactions.
Hmm.
Um, hmm. Yeah, I think ultimately because hmm. So I created a new account about a month ago, a month and a half, about finance out of boredom.
Hmm.
Um, and completely new niche. I basically took these Sankey charts of people and how they spend their money and just starting roasting them online. And I think time and time again, I realize that it's really about the video um, and whether people like it or not. Because at the end, on the other side, it's going to be the people that decide whether or not they want to watch your video. And so I think you could buy followers. I think that is something that, it is possible. Um, but from this experience, and also just from my educational stuff, every time I get into a slump and my videos aren't doing well, and then I repost an old video of mine that did well before and it does well again, I come to terms with the fact that it's usually not about the algorithm. It's just that I'm not really making the best videos right now, and I need to change something with the videos. Um, and yeah, I think the other thing is it's about volume. Um, it took me 150 videos to get to the first viral one. And it is a lot of work. But eventually, once you get that flywheel effect, then you can really start, um, you know, getting some steam. It's just that initial part is really tricky. But
Well, it's also the like 10,000 hours, right? Of like, okay, you've got your reps in and you're probably improving each video in ways that are almost like imperceivable. And then I mean, it's a brutal meritocratic system, social media. Uh, so it's probably like it makes sense for founders who are not native to being creators themselves to partner truly with creators to and influencers. Um, so we have 12 minutes left now, and one of the advantages of this being live is I'd love it if open up to any of our attendees to ask Limmy a question directly. We'd love to kind of like hear thoughts, reactions, questions that people have for Limmy. While we have you live on the on video. But while people gear up their questions, what what's like, is there a platform that you're most excited about in the next like couple of years? Like, do you see it as like LinkedIn? Are you going to continue to do Instagram? Like, which one do you think has the most potential as a platform?
ooh, hmm. I want to say LinkedIn. I think there are a ton of people on LinkedIn just because, you know, you kind of have to be on LinkedIn. And I think if you're selling anything, I think LinkedIn is more likely to give you some crazy results, especially paired with some things like DM automation, for example, where you see those posts like comment this and I'll send you this,
Hmm.
and it's automated and you get like 3,000 comments and now you have 3,000 emails and 3,000 potential users. You can just grow so insanely fast. You can grow your company really fast. And then especially because I think um, I don't think that I'll do something like Nikita Beer's social apps where you're, targeting, social interactions of kids. I think, yeah, I just think the idea of LinkedIn being underpriced attention is so true. And eventually people will come around and be like, wow, there's so many people on this platform. If I'm just slightly better than all the happy to announce and the, you know, uh and the basic, like I got this job posts, then I think, there's room to make a splash.
What I mean, what content creation tools should startups use for themselves if they're not working with an influencer? Like, how do you learn how to do even that? Like, what was it? The DM,
Oh, the DM automation.
the DM automation. Are there like hubs that
So
people go to or
yeah. I think it's called ManyChat.
okay?
It's I believe it's on Instagram. It's probably the best Instagram tool. Number one. It grew my Instagram by I think 100K followers in a month. In the first month that I used ManyChat, it grew my account 100K followers.
Wow.
And yeah, so the idea with this is you post a video about something, you tell your audience to comment this, and then you give them a free guide or a free something. And the video that did the
This is it,
best,
right?
yes, that is the one.
Okay.
Um, my best performing ManyChat video, I think, is at 5.5 million views last time I checked. And then
Hmm.
it has 80,000 comments. And so that's 80,000 emails that I collected for MaxSubmit. Um, and so with this tool, I think if you can get one of your videos to do, and it's great because it's everything is automated. And you know, as long as you can provide direct free value to your audience, it's such a great way to get people um onto your platform. Um, so definitely recommend using ManyChat on Instagram. And then I think on LinkedIn, I believe it's like Phantom Buster or something like that.
Phantom
And
Bust.
then yeah, so those are a must. I think if you're a startup, so say, you're doing some sort of recruiting tool, then comment this and I'll send you a list of um, you know, 50 contacts
So
in
this is this
X,
one right here, basically.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are pretty great. And then I think this depends on who your audience is and what you're trying to sell. But if you can get somebody who is in the direct target demographic of who you're trying to sell to make content for you, that's probably the best case scenario because they tend to understand the direct pain points the best.
Yeah.
And people will listen to somebody who looks, like them. And so, for example, if you're selling to college students, if you can get a college student to talk about it and be like, yo, this is the best, this is the best tool for XYZ. And it's like, okay, maybe I'll listen to this guy as opposed to, you know, um, a high school student talking about it's like, what does a high school student know? Or, say someone in the late 20s talking about like, what are they gonna know? So yeah.
Do you have any go-to well, I one thing you told me once is that you have a video editor, like a high school student, right? In like Europe that helps you edit your videos. Like, do you recommend people like can like work with someone to help them automate them, or do you just kind of like find people on the internet and they come to you, or any tips there?
Yeah, it's tricky finding an editor. Definitely, I'd say if you get to a point where you're pumping out 3, 4 pieces of short form content every day,
Hmm.
definitely want to get an editor.
Yeah.
In terms of finding those editors, hmm, it's tricky. I'm tempted to say that if you want to find, mm, yeah, that's tricky. Probably word of mouth is the best.
Hmm.
Uh, you kind of, you know, there's probably some great photo. I mean, with editing, it's so simple nowadays to just use CapCut and make great videos. And so you could probably find a college student to do that. Um, so yeah, and then maybe teach them a little bit about, what you want the videos to look like. That's probably the best strategy. And then I'm also excited just in the future for better editing tools, like direct, like you just type in how you want the video to be edited and then it, comes out the way you want it to. So maybe we'll look out for that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So I know we'll wrap it up now. I guess if people want to reach out to you, it sounds like they should send you a personalized email. And what's the best way to reach out? Like, what's your email? Where can they find you?
Yes, for sure. I will type it in chat. Um, and then you can also DM me on Instagram. Um, I read most of them. I try to, so yeah.
Awesome. Um, any final words of wisdom or advice for our group?
Um, I guess I want to say that I know that influencer marketing can seem very risky. And it is risky because it's hard to even track what the results are. And it is kind of like, it really is kind of like, I think, roulette, where you see some of these success stories and you're like, oh my God, like this dude made one organic video, which got this company 40,000 users. Um, and it's like trying to replicate that can be tricky, but I think with anything, it's gonna take some experimentation. Like even for me, it's like I thought, okay, after all these years of doing brand deals and understanding how conversions work on the influencer side, I could probably do the same thing for my company. And it's like it's still like, oh man, like, am I really just burning money here? And so I do get the struggle. But I think if you can sort of work your way up, start small, trying to see if things work, and it's basically the same thing as, with anything when you're running a business, I suppose. Um, but yeah, I think as long as you take it with longevity and sort of just try to see where things might go, I think that's probably the best way to see results with it. And then of course, thinking about all the things like product audience fit and all this other stuff. Yeah, I think that's yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing all of your insights. We will, get out the recording of this video and the clips to our attendees and virtual attendees. I also want to, thank Mindy Chen and Aten, who from the ECMC Education Impact Group. They've been helping so much make this happen. And we will be back again next week with Rob Snyder from Harvard to talk about product market fit for B2B companies and go to market. Limmy, thank you so much. Appreciate you. This is
Thank you,
great.
Caitlin.
Cool.